Are you looking for an unlocked budget smartphone for under $100? In this video, I'm going to go over my top 4 budget unlocked smartphones of summer 2019, so let's get started. Number 1 is the Umidigi A3 Pro. So this device is currently available for $99.99 on Amazon, and it's available factory unlocked. The device features a 5.7-inch display coming in at 720p with a 19:9 aspect ratio. It does have a notch on the top, and it's a little bit wider, kind of like the notch on the iPhone XS. With this device, you're going to be getting an 8-megapixel front-facing camera. Then on the back, there's a 12-megapixel main camera and a 5-megapixel secondary camera, which will allow you to take photos in bokeh mode. The device features 32 gigabytes of internal storage with the ability to expand that with a microSD card. It has 3 gigabytes of RAM. It runs the MediaTek MT6739 processor. It has 3,300 mAh of battery capacity and runs Android 8.1 Oreo. I don't know if or when it will ever be updated to Android Pie, which is the current version of Android, but one thing's for sure is that Umidigi did a good job optimizing the software on this phone, so it does run Oreo really well. My favorite thing about this phone definitely has to be the build quality. Of course, it has really nice design here on the front with the notch on the top and a very good looking and clear display, but also on the sides here we do have metal, and on the back it's kind of like a plasticky glass look, and it really reminds me a lot of the iPhone XS. We also have a fingerprint sensor in the back here that's really fast, so that's great to see. On the bottom here, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, a microphone, a micro USB port, and the speaker. On the right side, we have the power button and volume rocker. On the left side, we just have the slot for the SIM card and micro SD card, and on the top, we have nothing. Number 2 is the Blue R2 Plus 2019. This device was launched in February of 2019 and is available currently on Amazon for $99.99. It has dual SIM compatibility and is available factory unlocked. The device features a 6.2-inch display at 720p and has a 19:9 aspect ratio. The display itself is very clear, very good looking. We have a notch here on the top that houses the 8-megapixel front-facing camera with a flash, and it has the earpiece. Now it's certainly a wider notch, but very similar to the notch on the Umidigi A3 Pro and iPhone XS. Down at the bottom, we do have a decent sized lip here, but overall I think the phone has a really good design. With this device, we're going to be getting 16 gigabytes of internal storage with the ability to expand that with a microSD card up to 64 gigabytes. In addition to a fingerprint sensor on the back to unlock it, you can also use this with Face ID. Also on the rear, we have a dual camera setup with a 13-megapixel main camera and a 2-megapixel secondary camera. You're going to be able to take photos in bokeh mode with this phone, but to be honest, it's not overly impressive. You still will be able to take good looking photos with this phone that are certainly usable. The device features 2 gigabytes of RAM, and it runs the MediaTek MT6739 processor, which is the same processor that's used by the Umidigi A3 Pro. The device has 3,000 mAh of battery capacity and runs Android 8.1 Oreo, which is a previous version of Android. Just like the previous phone I showed you, I don't think this will ever be updated to the latest version of Android, which is currently Android 9 Pie. And the good news though is that the software does run well on the phone, and despite it having 2 gigabytes of RAM, everything still runs very smoothly. Of course, you're getting what you're paying for here, but overall, I think you're going to get a very good experience with the Blue R2 Plus 2019. One of my favorite things about this phone is the material on the back. Now it is a fingerprint magnet, it really does absorb my fingerprints, but it's a very interesting and different reflective material, and it's almost like a mirror. So it is plastic, it does scratch fairly easily, but still looks really cool and unique. On the right side, we have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. We have the power button. On the left side, we have the button that triggers the accelerate and power saver modes, and we have the volume rocker. On the bottom, we have the microphone and speaker. And on the top, we have the micro USB port, and we have the 3.5mm headphone jack. It's certainly kind of strange that the micro USB port is on the top of this phone, but I suppose it's one of the compromises you might have to make for buying a device in this price range. The build quality on the Umidigi A3 Pro is definitely way better than the build quality on the Blue R2 Plus 2019, but you're most likely going to be using cases with both of these phones, so probably a lot of the time you won't even notice what material it's actually made out of. Number 3 is the RCA Q2. This device is very new to the market. It literally just came out a few days ago, and it's available for $89.99, so very inexpensive. The device is available factory unlocked and works with GSM carriers. It also is dual SIM compatible, so if you have 2 active SIM cards, you can put them both in this device and use them at the same time. Now, the design of this phone is definitely a little bit old school. We have off-screen Android buttons and no notch at the top. However, we do have a 5-inch display that is 720p and does look good and clear. The device has an 18:9 aspect ratio and a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. The phone has 16 gigabytes of internal storage with the ability to expand that with a micro SD card. There is no fingerprint sensor on the phone, which is unfortunate to see, so you are limited to using the passcode to access the device. On the rear, we have one camera, which is 8 megapixels. So there is no portrait mode with this phone. It has 2 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm actually not sure what processor it has because I can't find it anywhere, but RCA advertises the phone as having a quad-core 1.3 gigahertz processor. Video recording on this device maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second. It features a 2,200 mAh internal battery and runs Android 9 Pie. It has a 2,200 mAh removable battery and runs Android 9 Pie. So definitely some unique things about this device. Of course, it's great that it runs Android 9 Pie. I also respect that it does have a removable battery. It's the only phone out of the 4 I'll be showing you today that does have a removable battery. And I actually really like this material on the back side. It almost looks like a white ceramic material. It is very shiny and polished, and I really haven't seen a material like this on a smartphone anytime recently, if not ever. The buttons on the side have an interesting piano black look with the power button and volume rocker. On the left side, we have nothing. On the bottom, we just have the microphone. And on the top, we have the micro USB port and 3.5mm headphone jack. Then on the back, of course, we have that 8 megapixel rear camera. We have the flash, we have the RCA logo, and we have the speaker. Now, I have heard that this device actually has been a really hot seller so far for RCA, so hopefully that trend continues. And I'm really excited to see that RCA is getting back into the budget phone game. Of course, there are some limitations with this phone, such as it having 2 gigabytes of RAM, but I am glad to see that it does run Android 9 Pie, so even if we don't see a software update ever with this phone, it's good that it does have Android 9 Pie out of the box. And at $89.99, there's not too much you can complain about. It's a great second phone to take to the gym, a nice little companion phone maybe with your main phone, or if you're really on a budget, you can use this as your main phone. Number 4 is the Blue Vivo Go. This device was launched in December of 2018 and runs Android 9 Pie Go Edition. So unlike the normal version of Android, this has been optimized for its relatively low specifications, and it comes with Go optimized applications. So you can use Google Go, Gmail Go, Assistant Go, Maps Go, and many others. You can also use third-party Lite applications such as Instagram Lite and Facebook Lite. But essentially, all of these abbreviated applications are smaller and more power efficient, and overall won't bog down the device quite as much as normal applications. Now, sometimes some functionalities are removed from these Go optimized apps, but thankfully if you want to, you can always go in the Google Play Store and download whatever you want. But this device is available factory unlocked for GSM carriers. It's available at $79.99, so it is the cheapest device of the 4 that we're looking at today. There is no notch on the top. It does have a 720p display that does look quite good. It has an 18:9 aspect ratio, 268 ppi, a 6-inch display overall, which is very large. So this is perfect for watching movies or browsing the web or doing anything where a large display would really come in handy. Now we do have a front-facing camera with a front-facing flash. The front-facing camera is 5 megapixels. The phone has 16 gigabytes of internal storage. It has a fingerprint sensor in the back, along with an 8 megapixel main camera and a 0.3 megapixel secondary camera. Now, to be honest, the cameras on this device are trash. They're not very good at all, so don't buy this phone if you're planning on taking a lot of pictures. There is kind of a fake portrait mode, bokeh mode, but it really just blurs the edges of your photos, so it's pretty much useless. Now, the phone does run 1 gigabyte of RAM, which certainly is a disappointment, but I suppose that's why they put Android 9 Pie Go Edition on the phone. It still runs pretty smoothly overall, but you are still going to see limitations regardless by having 1 gigabyte of RAM with the phone. It runs the MediaTek MT6739 processor, which is the same processor that the Blue R2 Plus 2019 and Umidigi A3 Pro run, so that's kind of cool to see, but it is kind of bogged down with just having 1GB of RAM. Video recording with this phone maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second, but like I said before, I wouldn't buy this if you're planning on taking a lot of videos because they're not going to look that good. Battery capacity with this device is 2,600 milliamp hours, which certainly isn't bad, and overall you're going to get good battery life with this phone. As I mentioned before, we have a 6.3-inch display on the front here with the front-facing camera and front-facing flash. Quite a bit of bezels on the bottom and top, but that's alright. Overall, the phone still does look nice. On the left, we have a button here for the accelerate and power saver modes. We also have the volume rocker. Then on the right side, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card and the power button. On the bottom, we have the microphone and the speaker. On the top, we have the micro USB port and the 3.5mm headphone jack. And on the back side, we have that camera module, fingerprint sensor, and the blue logos. Overall, I would say that the Blue Vivo Go is probably the least impressive device out of these four, so you'll have to keep that in mind, but it is the cheapest device of the four. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know out of these four devices which one is your favorite. I'm really interested to know. Also, there are links in the video description where you can see the most up-to-date pricing for these phones as well as buy them. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.